Boom. Welcome back in to the Wolves Den. I'm Jay Bir, at DJ Bir. You can follow me on Twitter. Make sure you do that because I am really a great Twitter follow. I'm missing the blue check mark, but that's about it. Let's get into things this week. It's a bit of an interesting week on both sides of the court for the men and the women. Very valiant battles. This was actually a good week for them. Not quite the results you'd always want to see, but we did get one solid win there. Let's take a look at what was going on last week there for the men. You see taking on the Texas Tucson. That says Alabama. I don't know why. There you see Texas Bobcats, UTA Mavericks. You kind of see what they're dealing with there, putting up over just a little under 75 points a game and 67 there. Both teams kind of get after it on the boards. Both teams fairly okay at assisting. Texas State obviously doing a lot better there than UTA. Kind of in those mid 200s, so not that great when it comes to the assists per game. But for Texas State, I mean, this was just a game rather. Arkansas State jumps out big in this one. It was really quite surprising. And really, when Ty Cockfield is feeling it, you know this is going to be one of those kind of games. In fact, this guy went off in this one. Career high, 39 points in this one. He was 13 of 24, hit all of his free throws, going 9 for 9, and 4 of 7 from 3. So it's not like he just depended on 3. A lot of times you see high-scoring games like that in the collegiate game. You see those big inflated 3 numbers. Not so much for this guy. Got to the line a fairly good amount as well, but also Tristan Wally sort of helping lead the way there. He had 12 points. So really this was the Cockfield show, and you see there at the score, but unfortunately Texas State, very good team. They play some very good defense and kind of clawed their way back into this one. Even took a fairly sizable lead in the second half, but and then Arkansas State kind of made a game out of it, but then, as we've seen so many times before, just kind of ran out of juice. Now against Arlington, much different story. And again, that man, Ty Cockfield, was feeling himself, really getting into things for that one. Had 27 in that one. Also, Grantham Gallard kind of chipping in a little bit, 12. But Marquise Eaton, you see him there, boom, splashing it. He had 26 of his own. So really a nice little three-headed monster. Especially with those two, kind of a nice little trio developing there. Ty Cockfield getting to the line a lot. He was 11 of 12. So it's sort of two different games there. They jumped out big in that one as well. They maintained it, and that's something we just really haven't seen Arkansas State do this season. But you see there, Arlington made a little bit of a run there and kind of closed that thing in. But Arkansas State finally able to prevail against somebody. It seems like so long since they won, even though they did win in Little Rock a couple weeks ago. But, man, beating one of those teams in the upper echelon of the league is huge. I really want to see how that'll propel them going forward. It's going to be real interesting. And if Eaton can kind of start feeling it a little bit, and really that's what they've been missing all season. We've talked about it ad nauseum here, is they're really missing that second guy who can sort of step up when Ty Cockfield goes cold, or if they just kind of find themselves in a bit of a slump, somebody else that they can depend on to put the ball through the rim. That's just something that they haven't done very well so far this year. But again, that man Ty Cockfield earned himself Sun Belt Player of the Week. Again, a 39 performance, a 27 performance. Chances are you're going to be that guy of the week. So they split the Texas series this week. So a much needed win for Arkansas State. And again, even that Texas State game, really the final score, they ended up losing by, I want to say 7 or 8, not as indicative of how well they actually played in that game. And unfortunately for them, they just went into a couple of these second half cold spells that they tend to fall in. That's kind of what happens. That's what happens against good teams. Texas State, very good, not only defensively, but they're very efficient on the offensive side of the ball as well. So what do the standings look like now? Throw them up there for me, fellas. There you go. Texas State leading the way there. So, again, it's something that not to be expected, them losing there. You see Georgia State there still hanging on, 9-4. Georgia Southern also making a bit of a run. So it's kind of a Texas-Georgia show there in the top 4, and those 4 seem to be really solidified into the tournament as of right now, barring some epic major collapse. And then things get a little tight after that, and there's going to be a lot of jumbling. You saw ULL there, ULM there, also at 6-6. Coastal Carolina, South Alabama. So everybody's jam-packed into that potential 5 seed. And then you see Arkansas State there, 5-8, getting much needed win. Little Rock also right there as well. And then you got a couple bringing up the rear end. App State and Troy has just really fallen off here recently. So, you know, nothing too comfortable for this team, as you only see only a 1-game lead to be in the Sun Belt tournament, but also at the same time they're 1 win away from being as high as the 5 seed. So there is still a lot to be determined in this thing, and it's going to be real fun to watch them as they kind of get things going this week. All right, we'll save it for, both these teams are playing Little Rock next week, so we'll kind of get into the preview here in just a second. Let's jump into the women's game here. Kind of the same thing that we saw. They had to go on the road this past week, and there you see kind of what they're dealing with as well. Texas State kind of struggling a little bit. UTA, one of the top teams in the Sun Belt Conference there for the women's side of things. Both teams tend to score at a decent clip. Obviously, UTA scoring at a much better clip puts them in, I think, about the top 100. They might be just outside there. Neither team rebounds at an incredible rate. You see Arlington there really dishes the ball around. That is one of the higher, that's on the higher end of the assist scale. Texas State, not so much. So Arkansas State in this, in their matchups here, it really just couldn't get much going early on, especially against Arlington. And just again, and we've seen it with them all year as well. They tend to dig a little bit of a hole, and then all of a sudden they try to come back and make something happen, and they just kind of run out of gas. And it was kind of same song, different dance. Incredible eyesight there, great pass there. But Peyton Martin, again, sort of leading the way for this team, had 15. Much more evenly distributed scoring here on the ladies' side of things. Peyton Martin there at 15. Washington with 8. Kasia Westbrook, I should say, 7, 6, 6, 3, 5. A lot of people chipping in this one there. They did well on their free throw line. It's something we've kind of talked about here that they've struggled with mightily here. And in fact, you see here against Arlington, came down to the wire there, and in fact, that tray there sort of buried him at the end. So a valiant effort against one of the top teams in the Sun Belt, and against Texas State, kind of just didn't have enough in them. So we'll just jump into the standings here. You see Little Rock still leading the way there, 11-2 in conference play. They have really had things going since Sun Belt play has hit. Arlington right behind them in the standings as well. They'll have a couple of games to maybe try to catch them as well. Troy at 9-4, 18-6. Just keep them rolling there, fellas. South Al, Georgia State there. Things start to get a little jam-packed in there in terms of the standings. What do we got there? 6. App State making a run. Texas State at 6 and 7 there. So you're starting to sort of see that log jam there as well, with a couple rising to the top. Coastal Carolina, Lafayette, Arkansas State really just clinging on to that 10 seed, but they still have a couple of games over ULM and Georgia Southern. So don't want to say comfortable right now, because there's still quite a lot to be determined, but the seasons as they're going there, you see for Monroe and for Georgia Southern, not quite what they wanted. So Arkansas State could still squeak into this thing. So we'll just have to kind of see how it goes there. All right. And for both these teams, one game this week. Who you got? It's Little Rock Hate Week. Let's go. Both these games going to be up in Jonesboro this time. And as you might remember the last time, both of these games, they're fairly dramatic, especially on the men's side. Take a look going last week. As you remember, this was a game of runs. Little Rock jumped out big in this one. You think, oh, geez, here they go again. Arkansas State answers with a 40 to 15 run of their own. Took a big lead in the second half of their own. And then this one came down to the very end as well. In fact, it came down to a final shot, 84-83 the final in this one. But for Little Rock, defensively, they do okay, I guess. They're not the greatest out there, but they're sitting right outside the top 100, so not too shabby. Or I'm sorry, that's their scoring offense. So offensively, they tend to put the ball in. Defensively, they tend to struggle a little bit. But they shoot the ball fairly well. They're a top 20 team in the country in terms of their field goal percentage. And a couple of things they do really well. They tend to dish the ball around a little bit, assists per game. They also take a lot of free throws. So you can't give these guys free points, and that was a big factor in sort of some of that comeback there last time down here in Little Rock. They rebound the ball fairly well, and they'll force some turnovers on you. And they, as we saw the last time, they like to use that press, and that's something that Arkansas State did against Arlington, really used that press in order to kind of throw their offensive rhythm off. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what both of these teams do. As again, they're fighting for spots there. There's not a lot separating 5 through 12 on the men's side of things here in the Sun Belt Conference. So this is a huge, huge game for both of these teams. Not only, the rival thing, but in terms of the seeding as well. And both these teams could really use a win. Fortunately, though, for the Red Wolves, up in Jones Boogie this weekend. So that's something that should be hopefully they can use to their advantage. Should be a big crowd. I'm expecting a big one. Now, on the women's side of things, unfortunately for Arkansas State, they just haven't beaten Little Rock down here in Little Rock. It's kind of the darndest thing. But Little Rock, very good defensive team, top 40 in the country. They shoot their free throws well. It's something Arkansas State hasn't done very well, but it's something that they get a lot of chances to. They're still leading the NCAA in free throws attempted, but Little Rock doesn't turn the ball over. Their turnover margin is about 2.5, so they will force more turnovers than they allow per game. That's kind of what that is there. Let's see what else. A couple of things that they've really started to build up on, not only the assists, but their field goal percentage defense has climbed up just a little bit. They don't take a lot of threes in this one, so they're going to bang you down low, and that's something that, unfortunately, for Arkansas State, they just don't do very well. They don't have a large presence there in the paint. So we've seen other teams take advantage of, and this is something that I fully expect Little Rock to take advantage of as well. They've got a little more size than Arkansas State, but they've also got some ladies that can really drive the lane. They've got some athletes over on that side of the ball as well. And again, this is something that we've talked about this all the time in sports. If a team just happens to have your number, it's really hard to sort of get over that hump. But really, once you do it once, sort of those floodgates can kind of open up. I have a tough time thinking that this week will be that week for the women anyways. Little Rock just so good. They're on a roll. They will get after you on the defensive side of the ball. And much like the men's team, we tend to see the Arkansas State women sort of get into these shooting funks or just, times where just things don't seem to go their way. But that happens when you have a little bit of a younger team, and both of these teams kind of doing a little rebuilding right now. So a lot of improvement. We've seen it. Unfortunately, the results don't necessarily reflect that. So it's going to be a big one up there in Jonesboro as well for the women's side of things. So I think it's going to be interesting to see here. All right, a couple things going off the field here. The Sun Belt Indoor Championships were this past week. And boy, Arkansas State did some work in this one, finishing runner-up in both the men's and the women's. There you see sort of the top 5 here. UT-Arlington kind of got away with it there in the end. But look at that, a half a point came down to the 4x400 relay in this one for Arkansas State to take over Texas State. See there, beating them by a half point there. Louisiana go there in 4th, and then South Al there at 65.5 to get 5th, and sort of everybody else after that. So sort of a three-headed thing there, but unfortunately Arlington sort of gets that. But hats off, though. Hats off Arkansas State for coming back and getting second place here. On the women's side of things, not near as dramatic. Or I'm sorry, that was the women. Here, no, here's the women. I'm sorry, I'm getting all whacked out here. Video threw me off there. Texas State kind of ran away with this thing. Arkansas State there comfortably in second place. So you could kind of tell that there was a few events left that was sort of how it was going to be. Troy sort of making a little bit of a push, but not really getting much into anything. And then South Alabama and Georgia State sort of battling it out there. But some highlights from this one, at least on the men's side of things. Chris Hill finishing 7th. In the 60-meter dash, in the 200-meter dash, Jeremy Walker clocked at 21.48. Folks, that's flying. That's the third fastest time in program history. Good enough for second place there in the Sun Belt Finals there. A couple of other little high points there in the 800-meter run. Arkansas State really did some work there. Got three scoring runners in that one. Henry Kerbst clocked a 154, Seth Waters a 155, Jacob Ory a 157. So good for second, fourth, and sixth there. I'm just kind of running through some of my notes here. Some of the higher notes there. 60-meter hurdles, Amari James, Hayden Hampton getting some scoring in there. The 4x400, you saw a little bit of that there in the video there. They got third place in that one, losing to eventual champs UTA and also South Alabama coming through in the end. Pole vaulting, that's something Arkansas State has been known for. They're back. Michael Carr and Matthew Keown scoring up there, 5.13 meters, 4.68 respectively. Carter Shell winning the long jump event, had the seventh longest jump in program history, 7.55 meters, 24 and 9 inches for all of us English there. Weight throws did very well as well. Aaron Carter getting second and fifth in the shot put and also in the weight throw. And then the heptathlon, Hayden Hampton clocking the third most points in program history in the heptathlon. On the women's side, 60-meter dash. Girls are fast up there in Jonesboro. Caitlin Smith clocking that. She had her day winning the 60-meter, got second in the 200 as well. So she had her a heck of a day there. Also participated in some of the relays as well. Let's see, what else do we have here? The 60-meter hurdles, Emma Nwarfer ended up winning second fastest time in program history in those hurdles, 8.36 seconds. Y'all, that is getting up and getting down the track right there. And then in the shot put, Evangeline Harris getting second place, Grace Flowers fourth place in the weight throw, and then Emma Nwarfer also getting some big time things in the pentathlon. Got second, but had the most points in school history, 3,852 to be exact. All right. So that's kind of some of the highlights we've seen this week. Don't forget, baseball season is back in full effect. In fact, this past week took 2 out of 3 from Stephen F. Austin. In that third one, had a big-time comeback in that one. I want to say they were down about 4, clawed their way back in, 76, got the series win. Got a big game with Ole Miss this week, midweek. Kind of got shifted a little bit on us here. We were thinking it was going to be Tuesday night, weather pending. Hopefully they can get that thing played here pretty soon. We'll definitely bring that for you as well. Golf team going to get back into things. Obviously track and field's doing their thing. The outdoor season is going to start up pretty soon. So we're getting geared up not only for the Sun Belt Conference tournament on the basketball side of things, but we got some of the other spring sports really starting to kick into high gear. All right, my dudes, that will do it for us here in the Wolves Den. A little quicker version here. We're going to try to get some reaction next week here because, again, it's Little Rock Hate Week. So feel free to send me all of your Little Rock Trojans hate. It's nothing but love for them, though, in sort of a brotherly way. We love to hate Little Rock. That's what it is. All right, so for all the guys here, I am Jay Bir here in the Wolves Den, and we will see you guys next week.